Hola estudiantes, hoy es el día 20 de septiembre, ¿cómo están? Espero que todo bien. Vamos a continuar con la composición en español y quería hablar un poco sobre el último trabajo escrito. So here we are with the instructions for trabajo escrito 1, and you were to choose either an autorretrato, epopeya, or caricatura. Notice how you wrote the first draft as a VHL activity. And so I commented on that, gave you some suggestions, and that was supposed to serve as a first draft. You're supposed to flesh it out, follow my advice, and make any corrections, and then come up with an excellent description for your final project number 1. So notice how you also have a rubric. So it's always important to use the rubric as a checklist. So not everybody did that, so that's why I'm reminding you now in English. You really should watch these videos because they're quite pertinent to what we're doing in the course. And formato. So it's got to be 400 words, and it's got to be single space. I had a lot of students who just double spaced. So they didn't understand that instructions, following the instructions are part of the assignment. So it's got to be single space, and also don't include extra space between paragraphs. Typically, MS Word will take an extra space if you let it, but no, you're going to have to go in and make the change. I showed you how to do it. We also have a little video demo showing you exactly how to do it. Basically, you go in and you just push the button, click off the box that says don't add additional space. It takes about 10 seconds. And remember, you want to indent 5 spaces, have a sangria, that's how you say that in Spanish, of 5 spaces for each paragraph. Some people just had a single paragraph for the description. Okay, but you need to think of the reader and organize your ensayo, organize your description so that it's reader friendly. So probably for something like this assignment, you would need 2 or even 3 paragraphs. So just thinking towards the future, think about how you can organize your writing a little bit better. So as far as formato, there's really no way you should be giving up any points, right? Just follow the instructions, 10 points. Okay, then we have título. Your writing always needs a title in this course. And again, these are all worth 10 points. And I have a lot of students who didn't even include a title. So again, you want to use this as a checklist to make sure, okay, do I have a title? Do I get full 10 points? Have I used the appropriate conventions for Spanish? And there are a lot of issues with that because the conventions between English and Spanish, orthographic conventions, that is the writing conventions, are quite different. So let's take a look at that right now. So I've added to student resources on the Canvas website tips for writing titles in Spanish. So we'll come up here and we're just saying there are important orthographic differences, writing conventions between titles in English and Spanish. In English, all of the words of the title are capitalized, except for short function words like articles, the, and, etc., prepositions, of, at, and also relative pronouns like that. So in Spanish, only the first word of the title is capitalized. All the other words appear in lowercase except proper nouns. So compare these examples from Spanish and English. So first we have English, history of the Spanish language. So this is a book, that's why this appears in italics. Books and movies appear in italics. And the Spanish version, Historia de la Lengua Española. Notice how only the first letter of the first word is capitalized because we don't have any proper nouns here. So that's the basic difference between the two. Some more examples. This is a movie, and movies also appear in italics. So, Gone with the Wind, right? Lo que el viento se llevó. So that's the title in Spanish. And again, you capitalize all the big words in English all the words except function words, such as prepositions with and article the. So, Gone with the Wind versus Lo que el viento se llevó. And again, in Spanish, only the first letter of the first word is capitalized. Nothing else is here because we don't have any proper nouns in this particular title. Now we have two examples that appear between quotation marks because they are the titles of a headline, which I took from a newspaper. So, articles from newspapers, journal articles, and also book chapters appear between quotation marks. So that's just a convention in English and in Spanish. So, English version, the Turkish president affirms that Putin is looking for a way to end the war. So everything is capitalized except this little short relative pronoun that, and the preposition for, and the article a, and also the preposition to, and again the article. Alright, so that's the way English does it. Contrast that with Spanish. El presidente turco afirma que Putin busca un modo para finalizar la guerra. So, quotation marks, and then only the first word is capitalized until we get to Putin. Putin, his last name is capitalized because it's a proper name, proper noun, and then nothing else until we get to the end, and then we close it with our quotation marks now, which signals that this is the end of this particular title. So take note that when you title your work in this course, a particular essay, a description that you just wrote, for example, you would use neither italics nor quotation marks, since these conventions are used only when the work is referenced in another piece of writing. So below we've got some practical tips for coming up with effective titles. So you can read this at your leisure. I think I'll just give an overview right now because we don't really have time to go through the whole thing. But, for example, number 1, keep it brief. Less is often more, and that's often the case with titles. So, here they have Secretos Tácticos. So notice how this title piques your interest because it promises to reveal a secret, and we want to know what it is. Right? So try to hook your reader if at all possible. And number 2, be careful. You can use a question, but if you use a question, keep it short and make sure that you give a response to that question in your essay. All right, so this person writes, ¿Qué hay de malo en odiar? So if you write that, you have to make sure that at some point in your essay, you answer that, you address that, because that's what the reader is expecting. So you don't want to disappoint. 3, sometimes if you juxtapose two concepts that are contradictory, it can be quite effective. So, encontrar la verdad en el mito. Okay, so we've got two concepts. You've got the truth and you've got the myth. And this is saying finding the truth within the myth. So that's quite effective. And let's see, number 4 says write a title that includes words that relate to your conclusion. Right, so it's almost like a foreshadowing of what's going to come. This is the bottom line. So, for example, well, I guess this one's in English, that's okay. Andrew Carnegie, the father of middle-class America. So we already know where the author is going with this particular essay. They're going to be presenting Andrew Carnegie as a great patron, a great father figure of middle-class America. And then they're going to tell us why. So these are some tips for titles in Spanish. Okay, getting back to this rubric, we have las descripciones. In general, they were pretty good. So I see what you're trying to do. Often you're making comparisons. You're trying to flesh out a person's physical appearance, and a lot of students are flexing their muscles as far as vocabulary, so that's good to see. I would urge some students, though, to perhaps experiment a little bit more. They seem to be a little bit repetitious, so they'll just repeat the word tiene, tiene, tiene. Try to think of other words that express that same concept to make your writing a little more interesting. But in general, I would say your descriptions were altogether pretty good. So, la gramática, kind of a mixed bag. Some people still have a lot of issues, especially with agreement between subject and verb, and particularly between adjectives and the nouns they modify. So you really have to pay attention to this. So if you have a feminine noun and you've got adjectives that modify it, you have to make sure that the adjective agrees in gender and in number with the noun that it modifies. And also some issues with ser versus estar. So if you need to go back and review these concepts, please do so, because they're not going away. We recycle constantly, and you need to start to get better mastery of these problem areas like ser versus estar, por versus para. Another thing you can do is, of course, proofread carefully. Go through it very carefully. Make sure that every sentence flies, every sentence is grammatical, all the words are spelled correctly. And if you use MS Word, you can always run it through MS Spanish spell checker, grammar checker. It's not 100%. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and it should catch some of the more basic egregious errors. So for what it is, it's pretty good. And ortografía, same story. So your MS Spanish spell checker will catch a lot of the basic orthographic errors. And again, it's a matter of proofreading and running it through the spell checker to catch obvious errors. And there's really no reason to have orthographic errors in your final product. And vocabulary, just make sure that you don't use false cognates. When in doubt, look it up in the dictionary to double check. So this were the 60 points, and the percentage of the number of points that you got over 60, that was your final grade for this trabajo escrito número 1. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, reach out to me, and I'll set up a individual Zoom session between you and me, and we can discuss your writing if you want to. So you always have that available to you. Bueno, vamos a continuar. Y vamos a ver qué tenemos para esta semana. En cuanto a actividades, aquí, septiembre, hoy es el 20. Y ya para sábado tenemos algunas 14 actividades en taller de escritores. Vamos a considerar estas actividades ahora. Entonces, lección 2, la narración. Y vamos a continuar. Entonces, ustedes han estudiado la lectura de este capítulo, la siesta del martes, ¿no era? Y luego el vocabulario para ampliar ser y estar, ¿no? Todos estos verbos tan importantes para nosotros. Expresiones de tiempo, también cruciales, sobre todo con la narración. Es lo que vamos a hacer ahora. Entonces, la narración en el pasado. Entonces, para el 24, ustedes van a leer esta sección y van a practicar un poco en cuanto a estas estructuras, ¿no? Entonces, aquí, la narración. Bueno, vamos a ver. Realmente este es simplemente el libro, ¿no? Entonces, vamos a hacerlo un poco más grande. Entonces, realmente nos enfocamos en los tiempos del pasado. Entonces, tenemos el pretérito, por ejemplo, versus el imperfecto, ¿no? Muy importante para hablar del pasado, ¿no? Para escribir historias en el pasado. Entonces, pueden repasar los usos de estos tiempos. Y también tenemos el presente perfecto y también el pluscuamperfecto. Entonces, tenemos aquí, por ejemplo, han llegado. ¿no? Han ido. Estos son ejemplos de tiempos perfectos. Y también tenemos, pues, esta versión, el llamado pluscuamperfecto, ¿no? Ya habían enterrado o ellos habían sacado. Entonces, van a repasar esto. Y no se olviden, si necesitan ir a studyspanish.com, también tener actividades ahí. Podemos ir rápidamente como recordatorio para que vean. Study Spanish es muy útil simplemente para repasar. Entonces voy a ir aquí. Esto es muy bueno. Si necesitas ayuda con los conceptos básicos. Y aquí tenemos unidad 6. Toda esta unidad trata del pretérito y del perfecto. Entonces, muy importante. Al final tenemos una especie de resumen. Entonces, muy buena esta unidad 6 en studyspanish.com. Es gratis. Y también tenemos los tiempos perfectos. En algún lugar de la mancha han de andar, yo creo que al final. Muy bien, entonces past participle y el presente perfecto y el pasado perfecto. So this is the present perfect. I think in our textbook they also call it el pretérito perfecto, so watch out with the nomenclature. And this is the past perfect, sometimes we call it, but we also call it the pluscuamperfecto, or the pluperfect, right? So again, cuidado con los nombres. This is the past of the past. Entonces, si necesitan repasar, aquí también Study Spanish es un buen lugar para repasar todos estos tiempos verbales. Entonces, también, ¿qué más tenemos? Entonces, vamos a volver donde estábamos hace un momento. Bueno, siguiendo, también van a estudiar las cláusulas adjetivales en español, ¿no? Entonces tenemos el ladrón que mataron aquí la semana pasada. Estas cláusulas dan más información sobre un llamado antecedente. So, what kind of a thief was it? Oh, it's the thief that they killed here last week. So these are all relative clauses, but they're called adjectival relative clauses because they describe, they modify, they give more information about something, a noun, right, which we call the antecedent. So, in that sense, they act like adjectives. Tenemos ahí muchos ejemplos de este tipo de cláusula, ¿no? Y también incluimos esta semana pues la acentuación 2. Entonces, ortografía y puntuación también, casos especiales. Hemos visto pues la acentuación básica. Ahora vamos a considerar casos especiales. Entonces, vamos a estudiar esto de los pares homofónicos. Estos son pares pues monosilábicos, solo tienen una sílaba. Y un miembro del par recibe un acento por razones gramaticales. Entonces se pronuncian igual, aún, de, él. Sin embargo, son dos palabras diferentes. Y una de las palabras recibe una tilde y la otra palabra no, en la escritura, ¿no? Entonces, van a repasar este concepto que seguramente han visto en el pasado, ¿no? Entonces, esto es todo para esta semana.